Throughout the lessons to date, you've seen me enter and edit some data in the work file, and of course that's one of the common ways of accumulating and refining data. But there are a lot of situations where you may need to get data into or out of your FileMaker databases in other ways, especially if you use other applications, if you need to send information elsewhere, or post it on the web, or if people send you files of information that you want to make use of. In such cases, it can be useful to know about FileMaker's import and export capabilities that let you upload data from various formats and also create various kinds of files that contain selected information from your database. The import and export commands in FileMaker are located on the File menu, and for their most basic uses, they're relatively straightforward. For example, if I want to export a file containing author details from the current work file, I first have to establish a found set with the records I require. In this case, I have a found set of 3 records, and if we view them on the authors listing layout, you'll see that there are a number of fields in the authors table containing information for these 3 records. When I choose the File Export Records command, FileMaker first prompts me to choose a location for the exported file, a format for the file, and to provide a file name. In this case, the default location is the desktop, and the default file type is tab-separated text, which is fine, although as you can see there are a number of other options available. I'll provide a file name for the exported file, and when I click the Save button at the lower right, FileMaker presents the Specify Field Order dialog so that I can indicate which fields are to be included in the export. The fields on the current layout are listed at the left, but I can choose several alternative locations from which to source the fields for the export. I can choose the current table or any of the various related tables if I require fields from outside the current table. In this case, I'll choose the authors table. I'll clear the existing field export order and choose first name, middle name and last name for this particular export. I'll click the Export button to proceed, and FileMaker has now created a file on the desktop called 3 Authors tab. And if I open that file, you can see that it contains the data from the fields in the records that I was exporting, each of them on a separate line in the exported file. In a similar way, I can ask FileMaker to import records from a pre-existing file that I created called newauthors.txt. To do that, I'll choose the Import Records command and select the File option. Then I'll choose a suitable file type, and again there are a number of options available. I'll select the file I wish to import and click the Open button at the lower right. When I do, FileMaker prompts me to choose which fields of data contained within the file I've selected should be brought into particular corresponding fields in the data structure of the current table. In this case, the current table is the authors table, and the fields in the authors table are listed at the right in the column headed Target Fields. In order to align the incoming data elements with the fields in the authors table, I need to drag each field to a position opposite the corresponding piece of information. So the first name will receive John for this first record, the middle name will receive Wyndham, and the last name field will receive Bainan. I also need to click on the symbols in between the 2 columns in order to activate the import for each of the fields. The arrow symbol indicates that a field will be imported, as shown in the key below the target field list. When I'm happy with the import field map, I can click the Import button at the lower right to proceed. And FileMaker then prompts with the Import Options dialog, asking whether auto-enter options should be enabled for the import. If I choose to enable auto-enter options, which is the default here, the auto-entry serial number and ID fields will be pre-populated as the import proceeds, which would be appropriate in this case. So I'll click the Import button without making any changes here. When I do, the import proceeds, and when it completes, an Import Summary dialog is displayed. As you can see, the 6 records that were imported are presented in a found set, and you can see that the serial number and author ID fields have been pre-populated during the import. As you'll have noticed when I was setting up the import, the File Import Records submenu includes a number of other options. As well as importing files, it's possible to import a folder containing either text files or images to bring them into FileMaker as a group. And there are several other options. You can import from a bento file, You can import XML data, and it's possible to import using Open Database Connectivity, ODBC, from data residing in another database platform. These capabilities give you a lot of options for exchanging data with other applications and for making the management of your data more efficient.